Hello, everyone. My name is Victor Lopez. I am a Air Force major, and I wanted to welcome you guys today to Wargaming and AI for All. I am the TPOC here for this session. We're going to wait a little bit longer for folks to continue joining in. We will be answering questions in the chat as well as live. Have another little document that's up and open, ready to coordinate with some other stakeholders here. On the call, we have a number of folks from AFWERX. We have myself, Veronice V, who is my PM, Logan Neal, one of our team members, James, who's helping us with a lot of our Collider events, as well as Scott Davis, another co-PM on the project. Thank you guys so much for being here. In addition to the AFWERX team, we also have the Installation Mission Support Center with Michael as well as Christy on the call here to help answer hopefully any questions that come up. You may see a poll. It is a welcome poll up on the system. It says, did you attend and have you watched the AFVentures webinar from 12/7? I'm going to attempt to give you guys as much situational awareness on this specific topic, hopefully answer some questions on the purpose behind what we're trying to build here. And on top of that, we also want to make sure that we tailor this well. So if everyone watched us from last week, I'll skip through a little bit more of the slides, but if the majority have it, then we'll continue on. So I'm going to start going through here. Lots of folks are joining us today in order to help. So from Air Force Futures, they are very interested in wargaming and how to better conduct analyses. AFWERX Spark is my team here, myself, V, Scott, James, and Logan. We mentioned IMSC, the Installation Management Support Center, who is also done a great job at starting to help us co-PM this and find the right organizations to combine. Air Force Gaming is on as well. Zachary Bauman actually just logged in. Hey, Zach, it's been a while, buddy. He's in beautiful Hawaii now. But he helped stand up Air Force Gaming, which is a group of gamers across the Air Force who we want to be able to bring in to this idea of wargaming and AI for all. Morpheus, which is the Vice Chief Staff's Strategic Studies Group, as well as Lincoln Laboratory. So a whole lot of folks that are coming together for this. With that, I'm going to pause and see, did we already, how's the poll looking for the established team? Before I continue, that
Victor,
will kind of let me know.
You have 5 that attended, 5 that watched, 0 did both, and 16 did neither.
All right. So for the ones that attended or watched, it looks like we're about half and half. So I will go about halfway then on going through a deep dive onto what the intent is for this specific topic. Thank you guys so much for joining. Again, we'll be taking your questions in the chat as well as live. Go ahead and post in the Q&A. So the intent here is to build games or to leverage games that are already publicly available, which we can glean information from for AI agents to help educate the force writ large. Currently, wargaming is done with a lot of preparation, a year and a half or two of preparation, a lot of analysis, and a lot of simulation that takes a lot of experts the capacity to be able to build those. And what we wanted to know is, does there exist games out in the world that could help us understand at a deeper level any part of the fundamental relationship between nations. So any diplomacy models, economic models, and yes, also military models as well. And within those games, could we potentially leverage new novel artificial intelligence approaches like reinforcement learning or imitation learning in order to glean better insights and build statistical analyses on what are the best ways to actually win in that game? So why should you even care about this as a gaming organization or someone who wants to build games? Ideally, there's a whole lot of dual use applications here. We want your projects to be able to demonstrate a extensible and AI ready game for RL agents. So what does that mean? Games of the future need to be very interactive. NPCs are expected to be very interactive and reactive to the situation at hand. Likewise, building state-of-the-art cooperative agents so that your players have someone that they can play with in a cooperative fashion is also becoming very much important to the ability of your game to be successful in the market. And we would like to do from the DoD perspective is figure out a way to collaborate, assuming your game meets our wargaming needs, to figure out how do we actually go about building the data sets and creating the APIs that would allow us to go and build state-of-the-art reinforcement learning team agents. A lot of this is based off of work that's already been done. So one of the papers, Cicero from Meta, another paper you may have seen with StarCraft or Dota. These games have state-of-the-art AI agents that have been built, and we all thought that as soon as AI beat the game, nobody would play the game ever again because AI beat it. What's the point of playing as a human? And what we saw was actually the opposite. People were more interested in the game, and we saw many more people start playing because now they had somebody more difficult to train against. And so we saw the state of the art of the human's capacity to play the game and of the high score, if you will, actually improve over time. And so if your game is enjoyable, already popular, and ideally for us meets some of our wargaming plans or some has an applicability to the Department of Defense, where we can use your game to educate the force on some wargaming aspect, some military aspect of our kind of jobs, we could probably work together and build these dual use applications. So as I mentioned, wargaming concepts are very difficult. We use a lot of simulators to build these capabilities. We get a relatively low number of runs on the simulations in order to be effective. And we don't use our current war games to really invigorate the force, to get everyone playing simultaneously in a really fun way that is educational in nature. And again, that's why we have Air Force Gaming here. Right. So our long-term objectives, what are we trying to do? And hopefully where can you meet us? From the Air Force gaming perspective, we want to educate at echelon. We want to educate the force in the fundamentals. How do we let them know what a surface-to-air missile is? And then how do we let them know what the diplomatic or economic concerns of war may be? And how do we work that into an educational organization or an educational game that is both competitive in nature, fun to play, but then also gives them the insights that they need. How do we take your games and do data sets or create data sets that we can get operational insight out of? Maybe we learn over millions of games of diplomacy the best way to interact with another person, or what incentivizes people more. What are the strategies that most likely lead to success in these games? We also want to help build RL agents in phase 2. The goal, after we have a really good data set in phase 1, phase 2 is about creating the APIs and bringing your game into a server so that we can wrap it using some type of RL paradigm and begin iterating over millions of games to train state-of-the-art RL agents, ideally for a DoD use case. So we'll be balancing playability and popularity with military relevance the entire time. And then, AFVentures, Air Force Futures, is looking at, how do you make from those state of the art, maybe red agents and those insights that we glean from your phase 1 data sets. How do we now maybe insert our own agents into your game and see how they play? Maybe with some classified capabilities that we run on a classified server. Maybe just utilizing the insights that we glean from the operational data. All of that I think is really interesting from a future war perspective, and how do we bring that into our current warfighting concepts? Some past failures to avoid. We realized a long time ago that we should probably never build our own games. We tried building our own games. I have tried building games in the Air Force, and I realized generally I'm really bad at building games. Instead, going to the private sector and letting you all do what you do best is probably the best way to go about it. And so now it's about, hey, how do we find where we meet in the middle? Where can we leverage each other's capabilities to really bring value to both organizations? And so we really are looking out there, as one of the things we'll be evaluating. How many worldwide users do you have? How much real world data do you have? And what loopholes have we found? If you're playing Super Mario and, if you double jump in just the right fashion and you break the game, that's the reinforcement learning agent's probably going to find that out as well, right? So in the phase 1, it's all about figuring out what your popularity, your playability is, trying to figure out what your DoD relevance is, how abstract do I need to take your game in order to really apply it to our use cases, and then what type of data extraction capability do you have? Ideally, you have access to your own code base so that you can pull out really high quality data. The most limited use case I think we would have is if we have to go to some type of red, green, and blue pixel matrixy for trying to understand the state space or the observation space of your game. That would probably be the most difficult. But we're looking kind of for these Markov decision process type data sets where you have your state space, your actions, your observations, and your rewards that are mapped to each other. And how do we do that in a way that gives us the best data for an imitation learning data set? In the phase 2, we'll take your game ideally and then bring it into one of our servers. What we're looking for here is an ability to be very flexible with your game and your agents. So how can I modify your agents? How can I scale them, your game, so that I can play your game faster than real time and in parallel on our own compute? Um, how do I put real gameplay into this? So maybe I keep it on our server, maybe we continue to use your server, but now is when we start to educate at echelon. Now Air Force Gaming comes in, we start hosting large Air Force Gaming tournaments, and we're at the same time extracting all this information about how people are playing and what those best strategies to win this game are, so that we can then apply it to real world scenarios. We want to be able to extend your scenarios with our own assets. So maybe we want to change how someone operates in your game just to see what happens. And again, run it through millions more of iterations. And then ideally the ability to inject an AI agent as an actual player, so that we can start honing our own capabilities, again, maybe in some of those Air Force gaming tournaments. And then continue collecting continuous public data sets from our games, and the internal modified games that we're running on our own server. So that's hopefully a really quick overview in 10 minutes or less. I didn't want to go too deep since a few of you had already watched things. I will pause there and ask for any questions to come up in the chat. For the established team, I'm going to start going through the attendee questions in the Google Doc. However, if there's anything that you guys see that we can answer in the chat, please, by all means. I will also be passing it off to our panelists from IMSC, from AFWERX, Air Force Gaming, or Futures if they are on the line. All right, so is this building off either the DAWG or Dagger platforms? Dagger is developing Airmen and Guardians with games for enhanced readiness, selected as a finalist for Spark Tank last year. I am not familiar. So if that's an Air Force person, please let me know. Zach, do you have any insight into that?
Yeah, I know Matt Correa, who has kind of led that effort, and as well as some of Air Force Gaming ambassadors have supported him. So we have not been in touch, but perhaps, yeah, that's a good ping to get in touch. And I think there could be some potential overlap. It is kind of distinctly different in a way. We're both gaming, but this is a large, topic. So that's what I would say on that.
Awesome. Yeah. Zach, I guess let me know if you want to be the POC to reach out there, and then we'll continue on. Let's go on the next question. In the games industry, interactive agents in games generally utilize extended decision trees and more. Recently have begun leveraging LLMs rather than moving to deep RL due to training costs and generalizability inherent with the approach. Any thoughts on usage of LLM-based agents for games? Yes. We actually have an entire team and researchers that are collaborating with us over at MIT, who are looking specifically at LLM-based agents for these games. So I think part of the challenge in phase 1, and the reason we want to work so iteratively and close with our performers, is going to be how do we collect the data sets and build the APIs such that an imitation learning agent and or an LLM agent could potentially play this game and, again, glean insights from them. I'm not sure what the right answer is there. I'm very excited that we have both RL teams as well as LLM teams ready, and we have DOD compute actually ready to go, with a whole lot of GPUs ready to get spun up specifically for this purpose. That part I know that I have, and we'll continue going. So super excited about it. If you think that LLMs are a better tool for your game, by all means put that in the proposal. Or if you have ways that we should leverage your data sets or how you would go about collecting the data set for your game, please absolutely push that in the proposal as well. Anyone else have anything else they would like to add on LLMs from the DoD side? All right, moving on. Are we looking at established games or looking to fund new game development, or both? I think one of the things that we're going to be balancing, as we kind of talked about, was where's my little there we go. Playability, popularity, and military relevance here. So if you're making an absolutely new game, but the new game is maybe extending a very popular game on a server that's very popular with a whole lot of players. I think there is the possibility there that that could absolutely be a contender. It's really going to depend on who applies to this specific topic and how many folks we get. If no one has a established game that they've built, then we probably are going to have to look more into the military relevance and what we think their capacity to be popular is. But I think really one of the things that we are excited the most about is finding games that already are popular, so we can go and collect data sets. And people in the Air Force would be excited to play it. Air Force gaming is not full of folks who are gaming for research purposes. They are gaming because it's something they love to do. They're playing the most popular stuff out there. And our airmen are the best critics, and they will tell us if a game sucks. And I will have to take them at face value. So I'm worried about creating our own games. It's not to say it would be impossible, but please think about balancing both relevance and playability for the future, as well as your own dual use nature. Zach, anything to add on playability there?
Yeah, I think I'm really happy with the posture that we've kind of established, and I think you nailed it right on the head. We don't really have this laboratory of gamers. It's more of, hey, we've got a large volume of hobbyists who we're going to try and tap into for this project.
Perfect. All right. Let's see. We have a company that's mostly a game service provider. Specifically, they provide data analytics for games. Their question is, can they still work with us? And is there any funding for new products to suit their needs? For right now, the funding that we do have for specifically this specific topic is for games and the ability to collect data sets in the phase 1 and extend the games in phase 2. That is really what this specific topic will fund. There are maybe some enabling technologies. We do have our vendors kind of already selected for some of the data analytics, and some of the folks that are going to be running through that. However, if you see that you feel that you could potentially help, obviously let us know. We would have to go through the standard contracting actions to look through that. But for this specific topic, we're really only looking for those games. It says, how will the phase 2 projects collaborate with Department of the Air Force, and what are the expectations regarding scalability and real gameplay? So in phase 2, we hope to be able to bring your games into our own server. So you'll continue running them on your server, do your dual use thing, make your game as popular and get as many users for as much, money on your side commercially. We want to be able to continue to collect that data that's being played commercially, but then also bring your game internal to our own servers. That means we probably won't always be able to contact yours. It might be on a closed network, and we'll need the ability to run that. So expected collaboration, expect to work with us on Dockerizing your game, expect to work with us on making it on our own network, work with us on ideally making your game so that it can play faster in real time. It can be run in parallel on our servers, so that we can really start to get after some of the more RL and advanced techniques that we'd like in the game. We won't be expecting our performers in the phase 2 to be experts in reinforcement learning. We will bring that expertise from some of our folks already on within the organization. But we want to work with you on how do we modify your game. And what we found is in the past, when we've taken other games off the shelf and tried to do that, it can be very, very difficult if we don't have the source code. But if you have the source code, it's a few lines to give us API access for, the action space, the observation space. How do you, choose what your agent is going to do at each time step? Those kinds of things. Let's see. My game has no AI, but it's very relevant and established, flexible, simple data sets. Are you interested in applying AI to such systems? Hopefully that last answer answered a little bit, but yeah, we're expecting you to have no AI. But what we do need is your data sets and ability to interface with your game to make it AI ready. And In doing so, hopefully that also brings value to your game, so that you also now have the ability to inject agents, or to create state-of-the-art cooperative players, with some of the data sets that we build together. Let's see. If we want established titles, why aren't we reaching out to some of the larger companies or someone who's already massive? I think most people are small developers without millions of players looking to start making a game. Agreed. To some respect, the Small Business Administration and the Small Business Rules are really looking at smaller companies, so less than 500 people that are US based. That is who we're reaching out to. The dollar amounts that we have for this effort, we'll expect to award 4 phase 1s, I believe, and 2 phase 2s, necessitate using smaller companies. So ideally, the ideal is, a small company that, has a massive player base. We understand that maybe not everybody has that, and that's okay. I still think that there's a whole lot of value in some of these smaller titles, smaller companies, and hopefully getting you to the point where you can compete with some of those larger studios, giving you this novel capability. So I hope you find that very interesting and something that you'd be willing to work with us on. Hans, what you got, sir?
Just one thing. Remember that we do have a sort of captive audience where we can tell them to look at this thing, and if your game becomes widely popular, we have that built-in player base that you can try to exploit.
Yeah, getting a bunch of Air Force gamers to jump in would be super fun. All right, let's see what else. Is there a performance for game types in terms of DoD relevance? RTS, World of Warcraft versus Command PE. I think we're going to be looking to you guys to give us how you think your game is relevant. Command PE is very interesting. World of Warcraft could be interesting, but let us know how you would connect your game to something that we care about. It could be logistics, it could be spacecraft, it could be flying UAS, it could be diplomacy, it could be team building. Let us know how you think that we should extract the knowledge from your game. Hans or IMSC, you guys have anything to add to that? Yeah. Go ahead.
So going down to the Warcraft versus Command PE, I can tell you that approachability is going to be key to playability and popularity. Command PE we have used in multiple courses in our government licensed version. But if you are not familiar with games of a particular style, it's just a completely different language that people have to learn. So I wouldn't say agreeing there's no particular solution, but please keep in mind who you're trying to target. Is it the people who already know that style of game, or are you trying to just make it widely acceptable?
Anyone else? All right. Let's see. What would we consider to be a popular game in terms of active users? That you have a data set, I think, at a minimum. Is it something that is currently being played? If you have maybe 1 or 2 users, that's like you and your dev team, that might be not be as popular. But if you have a good handful of folks, maybe in the hundreds or thousands that are logging in daily, that'd be pretty exciting. Let's see. Talking a lot about RL and LLMs. Much stronger AIs are developed using computational game theory, as we have shown, for example, in armored combat poker. Absolutely, there's interest. I think the reason we want to start with that data set in the beginning in the phase 1 is because we don't quite know what's going to make the best AI, the best agent. I think some mix. Meta showed that in Cicero in their agent was a mix really of game theory plus RL kind of mixed together to make the best agent. Sign up link. I think we posted that in the chat. Scott, did you have the Cyber? Yeah, so we are at this link that we can paste again. All right. Does it have to be a sitter? Can it be a Cyber? This is a Cyber. Dollar amounts. Mm-hmm.
It's both. It can be either
or.
It
is?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay. Sorry. Thanks, V. Saving me. All right. Does it have to be a sitter or can it be, large player base dollar amount? So V, correct me here, 150K? for the phase 1
Correct.
and 1.7 for the phase 2.
1.5.
1.5 for the phase 2.
1.5 million.
Yeah. Again, 4 phase 1s is what we're looking to award, and 2 phase 2s. If the company we choose needs to build a game, what size budget can the game be? We're veteran game developers and know that game development can be expensive. Ideally, we are piggybacking on a game you have already in the works, and we are working with you to add functionality to the game while you continue your commercial development. I don't know that these dollar amounts, especially 150,000, will fund an entire new game. It just might be too small. But hopefully for an indie game developer, that's something. Again, this is non-dilutive funding, very much like a grant. That is all the questions we have in the normal chat. Do I have anything else that I need to answer? It looks like there's a whole bunch in the Q&A. Established team, are you guys working those to put in the Google Doc, or do you want me to go through those?
Those are in the Google Doc.
Copy all. Checking that. Let's see, there's a couple more that are coming in here. Are the phase 1 and 2 just for game development, or are you interested in funding AI agent work? The way we have it written currently, it really is about helping us create the foundations and the data sets and the APIs, which enable the Air Force or you to do the AI work, which is a separate thing that is funded. So we're not expecting you to spin up GPUs and create all of that stuff. That's not our intent at the moment. Let's see. Are we interested in funding newer projects? Sure, absolutely. Let us know what games you have out, and hopefully there's established play base in a way that we can move forward. Given the reputation of your company. Let's see. How will we plan to integrate AI agents as players in these war games, and what challenges do you foresee this integration? So I think one of the ways that we plan to try and integrate these agents, really in the phase 2, is going to be through kind of, I think initially probably an API that would allow us in, right? And so what this looks like is working with us on developing the APIs, again, not only so that from the phase 1 we can start extracting the data sets. Ideally, we want high quality but low bandwidth data, not something like an RGB space. Again, we're not trying to do something like playing Mario Kart, where they just took the pixels, right? We didn't have the source code for it on building state-of-the-art RL agents. But ideally we have that API. The API, communicates with the agent where it's passing it the state in the observation space, and then we're able to, based off that agent's decision trees or matrices or whatever backend LLM it's running, we'll then decide what actions to take. We need to send that action ideally via some type of Python API to your game. And so that's really what we're looking to build collaboratively. So challenges I foresee there. One, ensuring that we have the source code, you have the source code, and that you work with us on developing those APIs to integrate with your game. That can be challenging, making sure that we're doing that in a good way. And then ensuring that we can run your game in parallel and faster than real time. Sometimes if games have too many dependencies, we end up with like time clock issues, where we're running faster than real time and the agents actually end up getting tripped up. So they have sometimes some issues with that. Can we be a virtual reality game or application? I think that could be interesting. I don't see why not. Just let us know again, how you would collect the data set. I don't know enough about that space to know if we've ever attempted to train an agent in VR. That would be really interesting to see. See, are we awarding phase 2 at the same time as phase 1 awards? No. This round is only phase 1. Success is going to be evaluated on the phase ones based off of the quality of the data sets and the volume of data and how easy it was to work with you to continuously start iterating on how we're collecting them, the quality of the data, the ability to replay those games with those data sets. That is kind of how we'll start evaluating for the phase two, as well as Air Force Gaming is probably going to take a look at the games and let us know how fun they are to play and whether or not those folks would like to play. Let's see. How will success be evaluated in phase one? We talked about that. See, there's another company that has a relevant game, which already includes AI and basic RL agents, which is awesome. I don't think you would be excluded from applying. No, again, just let us know how your game would be useful to us in the DoD, what insights we should glean from it. And if you're already halfway there, then we'll continue working, collecting the data sets and seeing what other type of agents we can bring to bear. See, programming language, the API would need to be in. A lot of the RL stuff, at least, is in Python. So my initial guess is going to be Python. We're not going to come at you with something weird, trying to get you to do something from the 1980s. I would expect most modern software languages, so C, Python, that kind of thing. Is there a preferred engine for development? I assume this means gaming engine like Unity or Unreal. I don't believe there is. The only requirements are still that, is it extendable, right? So can we take the game? Can we modify it maybe in some way? Can we change the agents? Maybe that's directly working with the engine, but ideally that's just working within your code base and modifying APIs as required or dependencies as required. Notable past successes or failures in wargaming and what lessons have been learned. Ooh, I feel like this is a good one for the group. IMSC or Futures team, do you guys have any good failures or successes for wargaming?
Yeah, hey, Salsa, this is Mike from IMSC. I'll jump in on that one. I think the biggest thing, one of the biggest lessons we learned over the years is learning the wrong lessons. And when I say that, we're referring specifically to logistics and how that plays into the wargaming environment. You can have the best magic missile out there, but if you can't get it to the fighter, it's not where it needs to be, then that creates issues when you're trying to find sorties and find ways to win the game. So for us, one of the big lessons learned has been the logistics play has to be realistic in order to support operations. And that's been kind of a core thing we've worked on for the past couple of years. Over.
Hans, what you got?
So along the same lines, identifying the core assumptions that you're kind of cutting out of the game development is key. Same. Logistics is a great example. A lot of times the games just assume everything pops up magically and you move forward. Also, it would help to have a little bit of rigor in things like communications or just movement, terrain, all that type of problem, spacing. So just knowing what you are not including is an active decision that will help wargaming.
All right. See, other successes and failures that I've had. For reinforcement learning, specifically building my own game was problematic because we suck at building games. The physics are always wrong. It's hardly playable, and not getting good data sets has been difficult. And then another failure we've had is too many dependencies. So when too many different disparate systems are trying to connect with each other over some type of like publisher subscriber network, that throws the faster than real time issues that come into play, because now I need all of my simulators to run at the same speed when I go faster than real time. And that can lead to physics issues when they're dependent on timing, specifically for kind of the outcomes of those. Other issues we've had are with APIs, where maybe we have access to the game, but we don't have access to the code. And then we have issues getting the right APIs to wrap the game in whatever wrapper we need for fast implementation of something like, Gym. And that can cause an issue. where we've seen successes is when we've had access to the developers, and we go straight to them and said, hey, this is the MDP we need. Can you print out a timed list in CSV of like these state and action and observation spaces? And they give us that within minutes because they have really quick access to the code base, which is great. All right. We have a simulation tool on the market that is more for commercial industry, but it is gamified. Is that candidate for submission, or does it need to be more of a consumer gaming side? I think that's totally fair. Just let us know what data sets you have. That's the only weakness I would see. Is all your commercial partners okay with you selling that data set back to us? It might not be. There's another company looking at a game with around 800 to 1,000 current users and about 10,000 active users. The game saves match data in a replay format, which we plan to translate to format suitable for RL. Is the player base and data efficient for the proposal? Yeah, those sound great. We'll work with you on trying to craft the data set. All right. We still have some time left. We're slowing down on the questions here, which is okay. I wanted to give each team a little bit of time. So from IMFC, I don't know if Dustin or maybe Mike wants to give a quick maybe 30-second to a minute on your biggest desires for this SBIR from the IMSC's perspective, and then we'll go to futures and gaming.
All right, so I was giving Dustin a minute to jump in, but I'll jump back in on this one. So I think one of the biggest desires that we have is we've noticed, at least within basing and logistics and kind of where our core mission focus area is at IMSC, is that it's a little bit what Hans said. What are the assumptions that are baked in, and how do we do that? And then something is one of the other things is, where do we do the investments? And we've played war games where we've made significant investments in, call it, runways, and we've seen that maybe it didn't make that big of a difference at the end of the day. Same thing on, maybe there's certain logistics or certain fuel stores or certain munitions that are out there that we need. And so really from a play and a rapid play and a learnability of using wargaming or using gaming is kind of that iteration for us, is to understand, what is that right mix? What is the right mix of bases? What is the right mix of munitions? What is the right mix of logistics and laydown that really makes a difference in a fight for us? Because that helps inform the strategy of where we're going to invest, where we're going to bed down, and how we're going to prepare for a future fight. So for us, I think the multiple iterations with multiple weapon systems, multiple bases, multiple combinations of logistics will tease out kind of that learning model of where do we need to focus our efforts, and that's what we're hoping to gain out of it. Over.
Nice, thank you. And then for the futures team. Is Hans still on?
Sorry, I got a phone call at the worst possible time.
All good, man. I can two-step for a second. We got another question that just came in. So we have a simulation tool on the market. Or sorry, we already did that one. We did that one. Government hosted environment IL2 or IL4. Most of the successful games utilize cloud-hosted services for game analytics, which might not be feasible to rehost in government cloud without accessing non-IL certified services. We'll likely be running these systems on premises. So we have a couple different actually supercomputing clusters that we can run that are IL5 actually approved. We'll probably be running them there and likely not AWS or Azure, because I don't want to have to work through the approval processes for that. For understanding that you'll probably have cloud hosted services for those analytics, ideally we want to be able to containerize those and then run those on our own on premises. So something like a Docker Compose, where instead of reaching out to wherever you have that hosted, we actually have that container now stripped and pushed so that we can actually self-host it. And then in the Docker Compose file, you would just point to whatever port you would want to run that on, and it would be running all locally. So we've had pretty good success running Docker Compose on some of our HPC resources on premises. See, would it possible to let commercial users opt out of providing data? I think absolutely. There was also a mention of PII. I don't want anyone's PII. I don't want to know the name, the location, or the addresses of people that are playing your game. But I do want to know what they did in the game. So if there's a way to anonymize the data, so we just have information, maybe a timestamp, and what they did based off of that, that'd be really interesting. I'm not looking to spy on U.S. persons or to get information from U.S. persons. That is not the intent. But we do want to know what were they doing in the game. I don't want to know even where they were from. So nothing that ties it back to any specific user. Can it be a virtual reality game or application? Are you considering traditional 2D games exclusively? I think, yep, we answered this once already. VR would be really interesting. Yeah, it would be super interesting to use. I haven't done it before, but open to trying it. Hans, were you able to finish up the phone call?
Yep, I'm back.
Awesome. Hey, man, what is the top thing you are looking for from this proposal?
Top thing I'm looking for in this proposal is actually a little bit of foresight from whoever is going to be pitching the thing. So on the first point, playability, popularity, that user base, how everything works, the game itself is going to be critical in order to get to the next step. But something to keep in the back of your mind as you're developing is, what problem do you think that your game is going to be solving? So once we begin putting in an agent, once we begin actually analyzing all of the data that we pull through, what do you think that data is going to be helpful for? If you can explain what the intended purpose is, as well as maybe a couple of other options, I think that would show that you've done your due diligence in how what you have developed can actually be used for military planning and wargaming. Over.
Awesome. All right. That pretty much wraps up the questions. It looks like so far, at least, unless anyone else has. I think there might be one more here. For due diligence for wargaming applicability, do you have suggested resources? Suggested resources on wargaming. Oh man, there's so many. I don't know, Hans or Dustin maybe, or Michael or even Christy. Do you guys have like good books? I mean, I'm thinking everything from like Sun Tzu to Clausewitz to Risk, all the way down to flying simulators. I'm not sure. The question was due diligence for wargaming applicability. What should they be looking for?
So I think you're spot on that it's just wide open. So whatever they want to use, go ahead and use it, as long as obviously it's not classified or anything crazy. Over.
Hans, what you got?
Same thing. If these war games are supposed to be helping people think outside the box, then I would almost hesitate to tell you guys what our box currently is. So if you can go out and find stuff, even things as far as news articles where something happens and you go, how could that have possibly gone that way? Anything's on there as long as you can build a case for it, is how I would approach that problem.
Yeah.
I'll add to that too. Some of the future lessons learned right now, like we're seeing a lot happen in Ukraine, and we're seeing a lot of use of drones and all those kind of things. So it's as much looking back at military history as it is looking at current operating environment and what's going forward and how the battle space is really changing. Okay.
Awesome. In terms of future wargaming government projects, are there any other genres you guys might be interested in? I think TBD, like we're looking for, the reason we want to cast a bright net on the phase 1 is see what is out there. Let us know. All right, I think we have about a minute left. So I want to thank everyone so much for coming, for all the participants who were able to attend, as well as all the staff. There's a massive panel here, both from the established team, the AFWERX IMSC, and futures teams. Thank you all so much for contributing to this project. We look forward to seeing your submissions. And then wargaming at afwerx.af.mil is when you can is where you can go to ask more questions over email. There is a stop date there. I think once the pre-release, once we start soliciting, we're not able to communicate. We'll have to just point you to the solicitation. Pre-release is from now until the 2nd of January, and then open solicitations from the 3rd of January until the 7th of February of in calendar year 24. Thank you guys so much for attending. We look forward to all of your submissions.